Okay, it says we're live. If you're watching the recording, hang out while we get the link and get into the Telegram channel. There we go. Almost there. All right. Put this in the Telegram channel. Okay, welcome everybody to the Permissionless Software Foundation Technical Steering Committee. Today is July 12th, 2023. I'm Chris Troutner. I founded the PSF, and I also maintain fullstack.cash, which is cloud infrastructure for blockchain apps, as well as freelance developer consulting. Let's do some quick introductions. Why don't you kick us off there, Aaron?
Hey, Aaron Sundman, member of the Permissionless Software Foundation, big fan of permissionless development, software, and engineering in general, and open source code. So glad to be a part of this and helping to make this come alive and help developers around the world work with blockchains.
Nice. Stoyan, why don't you give a quick intro?
My name is Stoyan Jekov. I helped a long ago with the JavaScript libraries for the foundation. That's all from me.
Yeah. Well, I like to say we're entrepreneurs, crypto enthusiasts, and JavaScript developers. So you can identify with as many or as few of those labels as you want. With that, let me go ahead and share my screen. So as always, our agendas are filed on GitHub under the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group, under a repository called TSC for Technical Steering Committee. And we file all of our agendas as issues. So this is number 58, if anybody wants to access the links in it. The scope of our meetings cover these software packages: the cache stack, the pay-to-write database, the Bitcoin Cash dexes, or the dexes on multiple blockchains, our governance documents, and the CoinJoin protocol. So there's just a couple items here. I wanted to give an update, and as always, you guys interrupt me anytime. I love being interrupted and go on little side quest discussions. I wanted to give a better demo. I introduced this in the last meeting, but I wanted to give a better demo of upload.p2wdb.com. So you can access, this is the live demo at upload.p2wdb.com. So p2wdb.com is a documentation site for the pay-to-write database. So this is an image upload application. So this allows someone to upload an image, have it pinned to the IPFS network with our pinning cluster, which runs on top of the pay-to-write database, and pay for that hosting for with Bitcoin Cash. And right now the limits are set to 1 megabyte. You can't upload anything bigger than 1 megabyte, although I want to change that. That's on the roadmap, which we'll get to later. I'd like to increase that to 100 megabytes and expand it for more than just images. Right now, it's just related to images. And what this lets people do is essentially permissionlessly upload images to be hosted so that they can use them, say, in front-end applications for blockchain apps. So this is what it looks like when it's done. I've uploaded this image, and it will give me a link to the pay-to-write database. This is sort of like the entry in the pay-to-write database. And then this is a link to the actual image from our IPFS gateway being hosted. So this is just one of the pay-to-write database nodes hosting this content. And because it's an IPFS hash, which is here in the URL, you can pull this same file from any IPFS gateway. Yeah. So there is a limitation with this app right now in that there's a backend element, and in order to sort of make this process faster, it sends the private key that you're using with the front end web wallet to the backend, so the backend can pay for all these fees, and that's not the right way to do it. You should never pass a private key to the backend server, or you should, that's what makes a piece of software custodial or non-custodial. So in this case, this would be a joint custody type deal, but it's just generally bad practice to send a private key if you can avoid it. So everything that this does, or everything the back end does, can be done on the front end. It just needs to be coded that way. So that's what I'm hoping to do, is fix that issue, like get everything on the front end so that there's no security issues with passing the private key to the back end, which would basically eliminate the back end. And then once that's done, I want to integrate it into local trade list. That's really, for me, the motivation for building this app. Is you've got these stores that are advertising their tokens, and so they need to have a token icon, and some of these have products, and so they need to upload images for their products. And so that's the problem that this app solves, is allowing them so that they can come here with just Bitcoin Cash. That's all you need. You can create a store, you can upload the images for creating your store, you can edit your products, upload images for those products, and everything's paid for in Bitcoin Cash. No one needs to know that they're actually using PSF token under the hood. That just all happens automatically. So that's like the goal and the roadmap that I'm on here with that app, and how it ties into this local trade list.
Nice. Wow. The great thing about this too is it goes from something that almost nobody can do because they don't understand IPFS to something that pretty much anyone can upload as long as they have BCH, and we're talking cents here. So yeah, this is a big move forward.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Aaron.
It's not integrated yet, but it's one of those things that clearly, I mean, any UI in a web requires some sort of image for people to get what's going on. And this basically makes that dramatically easier. And I'm excited to see this happen.
Thanks. Yeah, well, it's worth kind of dwelling on this for a moment, because like you guys know, I have been a big advocate in the past for Web3.storage. That's like the official Filecoin, sort of front end app for uploading files to Filecoin. And the problem with it is that when you do that, those files are not immediately available on the IPFS network. And it's been months, and they can't, I don't know what the issue is, but we've tried to use their service for Token Tiger, which is another app I'm going to show here. It's just been very disappointing, because everything from our end works correctly, but then, the user doesn't get the image loaded within like 30 minutes. And so that's just unfortunate. And so this is why I've kind of circled back to doing this pinning cluster and doing this file upload service, because it puts it on the IPFS network immediately, and you get that immediate feedback and that immediate gratification that the user is looking for. And I just haven't found a good Filecoin service out there that I could use, so I kind of was forced to build it.
Wow. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize it was failing that badly on the Web3.storage. I mean, because if it doesn't happen immediately, the person doesn't know it worked, or didn't know it didn't work, and just gives up on it. Or basically says, probably doesn't, it's just not fun. I mean, it has to work immediately, or people aren't even going to use this, or aren't even ever going to try it again. It's like, once they fail once, they don't go back, I'll just try it again tomorrow. It's like, I'll find some other way.
Yeah, and the other issue is like working with Launchpad and Token Tiger and working with other groups that use Filecoin. Like, a lot of times that initial upload is critical, because then once it's on the network, you can have automated processes that like detect the file and download it and pin it and do all these things. Like uploading the file is just the first step, but then you need it immediately available so that secondary processes can take effect. And that's the issue we were having with Launchpad and Token Tiger, is you'd upload the image and then we would distribute that to different CDNs and stuff, but it wasn't immediately available. And so like using their service just didn't help us at all. And, and then there are services like Pinata, but you got to have an account, and it's expensive, and they bill you on a monthly basis in fiat. With this method, you can be anonymous. and if you have Bitcoin Cash, you're good to go. There's no account sign up. You just pay, and we render a service and you pay for it. And we're talking about pennies here. And so it's very efficient, very inexpensive, very fast, and permissionless.
Chris, when you pay, how the whole process is going? Is it opening some wallet, or it's give you some address?
Yeah, so well, actually, let me show that. So it's built on wallet.fullstack.cash. So the web app itself, both local trade list and this demo app is built on. So I have a balance of 91 cents. And so if I go back to the image upload and I grab another image here, oh, maybe it didn't like that one. There we go. Oh, that's a bad example. I've got some clip art here. So if I have an image of a cat and I hit upload, so what it's doing right now is it's uploading the file to the backend service, and that's a step I want to remove, because I should be able to spin up an IPFS node right into the app, and IPFS actually has a really great React demo for doing that. And so right now it's pinning. So the image has been uploaded to the backend, and now the backend's doing its thing, which is it's making a pinning request to the pay to write database, basically. So it's writing an entry to the pay to write database with an instruction to activate the pinning clusters. And so the backend already has this file pinned. But it's just one node, and it's the only node on the internet pinning it, but it is available now to the IPFS network. And so once the pay to write, the entry to the database completes, then the pinning cluster will, each node in that pinning cluster will grab this file and pin it locally, and then it will be available, more widely over the IPFS network. So in order to bring bring the back end stuff into the front end, the browser needs to set up its own IPFS node, and then do all of the pinning on the front end, which is currently done by the back end. And I already have libraries for that step. So anyways, that's roughly what's happening and how I want to change things.
Nice.
So there we go. Yeah. So, wow, that was actually pretty fast. I thought it normally takes about 2.5 minutes, but that seemed like it was more like 1.5 minutes. And
Yeah,
then
that
same,
was very, very simple, right? I mean, as long as you had Bitcoin Cash in there, it was pick a file that works, hit a button.
yeah. And then I don't know if this isn't going to give us an accurate, because it doesn't refresh the balance after the upload's done. So I have 85 cents. So that was 2 uploads. So it was about 3 cents, three pennies in Bitcoin Cash to upload. And that'll get cheaper once we update the write price for the pay to write database. Because right now it's about 2 cents per write with the price increase of Bitcoin Cash.
Right. Very well done. Nice. I mean, it's kind of amazing that eventually can be put in the browser. I'm actually quite astounded that's going to be possible. I know this is not done yet, but boy, is that neat capability.
Well, that's a good segue into the roadmap. So I've got a link here at the bottom, but I've also got it loaded here. So the roadmap is part of our governance documents. I just updated this yesterday. And one of the reasons I want to go over this roadmap with you guys in this meeting is that I think this is probably the last meeting we're going to have for a while in terms of like a recorded YouTube meeting. Summer's in full effect. People are enjoying their summer, me included. I just got a new piece of property and I'm actively looking for a job. So those 2 priorities are taking me away from the PSF work. So and so the reason I want to go over the roadmap is like, I'm not going to stop working on this stuff, but my pace of work has slowed down. And I also want to call out some of the work that you've done, Aaron. I've got Own Rare down here. I want to talk about that, and Token Tiger. And just that's why I thought it'd be a good time to revisit this roadmap and just sort of document the trajectory that we're on, so that we can take a break and know that we're not not working. It's just we're just kind of going have other priorities. And I definitely am going to keep plugging along with local trade list and the pay to write database. So let me just review this with you guys. And again, interrupt me at any time, ask questions. Because all of this documentation's on GitHub. I know I'm the only one that ever edits it, but it's open for pull requests from anybody. So this first part, I just kind of call out the fact that we're not a company, and a lot of our contributions come from intrinsically motivated developers. And there's a section where I talk about the difference between intrinsic motivation, which is like creative, you're motivated by creativity, versus extrinsic motivation, which is being motivated by money. And I call out some of the major milestones we've already achieved. So documenting the cash stack, our whole voting process using SLP tokens, the end-to-end encrypted messaging system that we've built, the mutable data for SLP tokens, which is what makes local trade lists possible and Token Tiger possible. We've got our own SLP indexer, which is stable and mature and operating excellently. We've got our decentralized exchange. So if there's ever, a comeback with SLP tokens, we've got that nice piece of infrastructure in place. As well as the pay to write database documentation and the collaborative CoinJoin framework, which is about 3/4 of the way developed, but has the potential to make SLP tokens fungible and anonymous. And so one of the things that I'm looking forward to, just to go off on a tangent for a minute with that, is I'm talking with people on my local island to create a stable coin, a local currency called the Decatur dollar, because we're on Decatur Island. And so when and if that happens, I will finish up the collaborative CoinJoin framework so that we can all, there will be multiple people using this currency. And so I'll teach them all how to run the software in the background of their computer so that we can coin join our Decatur dollars and anonymize them so they really are like cash. So that's milestones that we have achieved. So I want to go over some of these milestones under development, just so that if anybody says, oh, the PSF's dead or something like that in the future, we can be like, no, they have a roadmap and these are the things they're working on. And so a lot of these goals are built on top of the milestones we've already achieved. So the pay to write database, the cash stack, the SLP indexer, the collaborative CoinJoin, I just talked about, those and a little bit about how we're going to build on top of them. But for me, and I think for the PSF in general, the focus from here on out is on the pay to write database. And the reason for that is that this has the potential to generate the cash flow and realize the sort of virtuous circle or economy that was always the vision of the PSF, where if we can get the pay to write database to be more widely adopted and more used, and that includes making it easier to use and solve more business problems, then that will generate a cash flow in terms of it'll burn PSF tokens, which means the PSF minting council, guided by the VIP group, can bring more PSF tokens into existence and have those to pay developers to then further maintain the software and create this virtuous closed economy. So just some of the milestones that I'm going to be focusing on over the next few months is increasing the pinning service from 1 megabyte to 100 megabytes. And this is definitely something I'm going to solicit feedback on from the membership. I think 100 megabyte is the right number that I want to get to, because any bigger than that, it starts to get unwieldy in a decentralized environment. We just need to really start to pay attention to scaling. But what that gives us is that people can now build front end apps like the local trade list I just showed. That entire front end could just be a blob on IPFS. So I don't actually need it to be hosted. Like, if for some reason localtradelist.com got taken down, well, if you have the IPFS hash, you could still pull up the entire application from any IPFS gateway. And I think this is going to be really important going forward, because right before the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX blow up. Sam was in Washington, D.C. talking he actually had a great debate with Eric Voorhees on Bankless about this, like days before the FTX blow up, like 2 days before it all went down.
Days. It was so strange, right? It was like right before, and like, wait a minute.
But the compromise at that time, the 2 days before the blow up, at that time, the compromise that seemed to have been reached with regulators by FTX, and the reason why Eric was debating him because he wasn't happy with this conclusion, was that they were going to regulate the front ends. They realized they can't regulate the back end. They can't regulate the blockchain. It's international. They don't have any way to enforce anything there. But what they can do is regulate the front end. And that was the angle Sam was pushing. And that was the angle that Eric was very worried about. And I was over here just being like, haha, I've already got this whole system for putting the front end on IPFS. And so like, it can't be regulated either. So anyways, that's what this magic 100 megabyte number gives us, because most of the React apps I've built, they're sort of like in the 20 megabyte range, and they're very simple apps. So even if it was an incredibly sophisticated app, like you'd be hard pressed to be pushing 100 megabytes once it's compiled and optimized.
Yeah, and people can compress videos, even long videos, under 100 meg. I mean, so even I mean, there's a lot that you can do. So that's fantastic. It's great to see this as I mean, how difficult do you perceive this to be?
It's not going to be very difficult.
Okay.
Because we've already got 1 megabyte. And the reason we have 1 megabyte is that you're just paying for a write to the database, and you kind of get the megabyte for free.
Right.
And so it's just the code that needs to make sure and say like, okay, if they uploaded 50 megabytes, then they need to have paid, so much PSF tokens to cover that. Right. That's the logic that's missing.
Gotcha.
And it's not a big piece of code. So I don't think this will be very hard. It hasn't been a priority.
Maybe the timeout period. So in case, you get 20 meg in and, it stops for a second. I mean, I imagine there's probably some other minor pieces like that of, just connection problems in the midst of a 100 meg file.
Yeah. Well, that really comes down to, I mean, that's a good point. But that actually happens before the pay to write database stuff happens, because
right.
Yeah, what you do is you upload the file and pin it to some node, whether it's in a browser or a backend, it doesn't matter, but some IPFS node has the file pinned, and then you make the write to the pay to write database. And then all those clusters, all the nodes on the cluster, they just sit there and they try and get that file. And they'll try to do that until they get it, or they don't, it'll just keep trying. So yeah, there is, but that's sort of the responsibility of the uploader, and that's why we need to have like a good user interface for the actual file upload component.
Right.
And that might be, when we get up to bigger, that would validate the use of a back-end server like I'm currently using to handle all that, so that the user can navigate away with their browser and not have to worry about their file not getting pinned.
Chris, on this note, you also mentioned that we need to fix the price of the pinning service. I think it was becoming like not very good, and we need to fix it. Maybe we should do this before you are going on vacation.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely something I want to prioritize. We have the ability to do that at any time. It's just a vote of the minting council. So I just need to sit down, do a little math, and then generate the multi-sig transaction, and let the minting council know on the VIP channel that, hey, the transaction's available for you to sign. And then we can update the price like that. So yeah, I'm excited to do that, because it'll be our second update, and it'll be a real test to see if everything's in place. I believe it is. I believe everything's in place. Another feature I want to add is a blacklist. I realize that, like, I love this permissionless update stuff, but it's great until someone starts uploading kiddie porn. And so we need to have a way for node operators to implement a blacklist, and if they have a CID, they can put that in the blacklist, and the node will not pin it. doesn't stop anybody from uploading it, doesn't stop anybody from disabling the blacklist. But if you as a node, as an individual node operator can make that decision. And then we'd probably have a community blacklist, that's like a GitHub repository that people can contribute to.
Right. And then you're just listing the CID. So again, that's nothing bad to put out there. It's just something that we all have access to blacklist. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think it strikes the right balance between censorship and moderation. And I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Bitcoin nodes, in that like anyone can reject transactions with their node. However, they will fork off the network. In this case, like you won't be forked off the network. You can actually just reject individual database rights, and nothing bad will happen to you as a repercussion. And then finally, this should be the first one, but I'm still going to be working towards a tracking and bounty system. I've shown you guys like the early prototype that we've got running right now. So twice a day, it's going out there and it's checking all the pay-to-write databases on the network, and it's recording data about them to the pay-to-write database. And so that is the step in this trajectory of tracking people who are running a pay-to-write database and rewarding them for doing so. So that's still kind of a longer term. I want to get these more basic things down and see some of these apps like Local Trade List and Token Tiger that are using the pay-to-write database, get them a little more mature. But it'd be great if the PSF had a bounty system so we could pay to maintain, say, 5 instances on the internet at all time, along with the pinning cluster. Right now we have 2, and it's working great with just 2. I'm running one for my stuff, and Launchpad IP is running one for Token Tiger.
Yeah, and I definitely want to get one stood up, and I feel like 2 is not enough. Right, just to feel decentralized, right? I feel like you get to 5, you feel like okay, we're gonna 5,000 would be better, but we'll stick with 5 at the beginning.
Well, and this is also the reason for holding off on this in particular, is like we might not need a bounty system. Like if we had 5 members who have their own reasons for running the database, like I do, like Launchpad IP does, then we don't need a bounty system, because everybody's just their own self-interest is enough to do this. But so this is a problem that might take care of itself, which is another reason why I've kind of been procrastinating on it. But also the tech just hasn't been there, but it's getting there.
Right.
So Local Trade List, this is kind of my project, but I'm also looking at it as it's on the roadmap because it's really a demonstration of a lot of the different tech that we've worked on over the years. It uses the pay-to-write database, it uses the SLP indexer, it uses the mutable data for SLP tokens. It leverages the sort of parent-child relationship between group and NFT tokens. And the reason why it's not just my project, everything about it is open source and MIT licensed, because I want other communities to see what we're doing, or what I'm doing with my community, and fork the software and tap into the existing data that's on the blockchain and build their own versions. Like I could see like a version of Local Trade Lists like just for gun enthusiasts, or I'm kind of taking this sort of local farm raised produce bent to it. Like that's kind of how I'm focusing it for my own community and my own needs. But any group that or Bitcoin, this would be a great Bitcoin Cash map if people just displayed merchants that offer products for Bitcoin Cash or whatever cryptocurrency. That would be a great way to sort of customize the software for another local community. So that's what I'm hoping. And that's the other thing is this software, when I built it, I had in mind like these little fruit stand sellers in St. Kitts. So St. Kitts has a lot of Bitcoin Cash adoption, but a lot of the merchants are like, they know how to use the Bitcoin.com app and that's it. And when I was there was no good way to discover the merchants that accepted Bitcoin Cash and the ones that didn't. And so a map like Local Trade List would be perfect for that. And so that's kind of what I'm also thinking of, like Puerto Penasco, this little Mexican town I went to last winter, kind of a similar thing in that like everybody's desperately trying to be entrepreneurial and do work, but there's no good directory or good way to do it, because the minute you do, either the state or the cartel is gonna like come knocking and ask for some money and some rent. So when I tell people to put a listing on Local Trade List, like you don't necessarily have to put it at your business. And it's great for just people who have, you know, like the fruit vendor on the side of the road, or someone who's just setting up like a permanent garage sale. There's a lot of those in Mexico. People just like every day for like 2 hours, their garage sale's open. It's just a permanent garage sale. And you see that a lot. And so just stuff like that, just to let other people in the area know, in your local geographic area, know that like you're open for business and here are your products.
There's
So
an interesting side to this too. I mean, just I like how you're approaching it. And I think it's pretty clear from what you just listed off, the things that you start with, the idea behind the beginning of it, and where people will take it, right? Those are two completely different things, or maybe 75,000 completely different things, right? I mean, I think that's what's beautiful about what you're doing. Because I mean, I do the example of the Craigslist, right? Mm-hmm. Craigslist started off as a dude just putting stuff out there, and basically he killed all newspapers. I mean, you know, you don't really know where this is going to go, but that's still centralized. That's still a centralized thing. Now you're saying, hey, make your own like Craigslist sort of thing, but it's decentralized. You control it. You do it. You want to put up a stand for 2 hours and put it in a different spot. Well, you did it and you remove it. I mean, all that stuff now becomes possible, and no one's permission is required.
Exactly. And it's inherently international. You know, there's no, and anybody can run their infrastructure. That's the thing. Like you couldn't just do Craigslist like in a country where they don't do it, because you don't have the code. You don't know how they do it. But with,
and they'd shut you down probably.
Yeah. But I know I would love to see, you know, I'd like to get out to Argentina sometime in the next couple of years, and because there's a really healthy Bitcoin Cash growth there, and this is a perfect solution for Argentina and Venezuela. Everything there is an informal economy. Everything's sort of done on the sly, and this would be a great tool to help lower the friction of the system and economy that they already have.
So, so there's a good example right here, and I've not talked to him personally, but Daniel, who's worked on the PSF, you know, I think he's in one of those countries you mentioned, but the idea is, you know, you've talked to them, you understand, you know, he's probably relayed stories of real-time life in those environments. To us, it seems so foreign, because I got a store, you know, a mile and a half down the street that can get everything, and I've got this, but that's not the reality for most of the world. And your tech works for the world as well as decentralized, and it works for the currency that works all those places. It's hard to imagine the value that it can bring once it's identified, localized, and as simple as doing what you're doing with the uploads.
Thanks, man. Yeah, well, you definitely understand the trajectory we're on, because it's like, that's the thing. I just want to keep, someone was really kept asking me the other day, like, well, what's the business model for Local Trade Lists? Like, how are you going to make money with this? And I was like, well, if it gets used, the PSF token gets burned, and that's ultimately, you know, how we monetize it. But what we need to do is just, this is how you get crypto adoption. And I don't know how else to do it other than to just build the stuff, put it out there, explain why it's valuable. And then it either gets taken up or it doesn't. It either solves a problem or it doesn't. And yeah, I look forward to the day when, you know, people just start hacking on this stuff and we see it used in ways that we never anticipated.
Right. I mean, the spawning of the use case, even if they don't specifically use your code, they go, oh my gosh, this can be done. I didn't realize it even could be done, and then spawns whole other thoughts, right? So just because it's not, you know, doesn't work the way we think it should work or it's going to work, things work differently for each person and each scenario. So this is great.
Nice. Good summary. So I've already talked about the non-custodial image upload. That's what I demoed earlier. Another big feature that I'm looking forward to developing is this commenting system. This was one of the original sort of innovations behind this, in that these comments, they go on chain, and they would allow, like, if you let's see, I've got it here. So I could click on this store, and I'd be able to, there'd be a comment button here, and I would be able to click on that button and leave a comment. And so once you scroll past the products, you could read my comment on the store, like, oh, the store doesn't exist anymore, or oh, this, this place is great. And then you can comment on the comment, and the store owner can comment on the comment. And so you can get sort of a discussion thread going, but it's all on chain. And these same sort of, I've demoed this before, I won't go into too deep here, but the not safe for work and the garbage, these are also on-chain claims. And so all this data is going on chain. And so my version of the app can display the data in a certain way, but anybody who runs the app gets to make these decisions on how the data is displayed. Like, nobody gets to delete the data. They only get to control how the data is displayed or not.
Right.
And so the comments are going to be a cool feature. And so lastly, on the roadmap, I just want to highlight some of our existing member projects. So Token Tiger is Chris Wickloff, who owns Launchpad IP. He doesn't make it to these meetings, but I've been helping him build this Token Tiger app. That's where Daniel, you mentioned him earlier. He's mostly doing this stuff, working on this project, this Token Tiger project. But it's just a fun, easy to use web app for creating NFTs. And it's really a proof of concept, because what we're trying to do is break into the supply chain industry and show that you can use these NFTs to track items as they move through the supply chain. And there's a lot of use cases there. Another big sort of use case we're trying to demo is intellectual property, being able to track intellectual property, show like when intellectual property was created, and then later on we can reproduce a specific piece of content and show that it is the original piece of intellectual property and has not been tampered with in any way. And so that's a big part. So this simple, fun app for creating NFTs is a demonstration of these potential use cases. And then of course there's ownrare.art, which is Aaron's site, which is an NFT creation, collection, and trading app similar to OpenSea. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to you continuing that in your own time frame, and
Right.
And eventually getting the pay-to-write database and all those token icons and stuff integrated into that app. I think that'll give a really cool thing. Let's see, Aaron's pinging me. Keep good work.
Oh, BCH merchant directory is badly needed. Nice one, Bitcoin Collab.
Yeah. They're easily searchable for people. Yeah, they're not quite searchable yet. BCH maps are not sufficient. Yep, I know. So one of the things good call out, Aaron. There are several Bitcoin Cash maps in existence, and I would like to roll those into local trade list. And because it's all permissionless, anyone can do that at any time. And once the data is on chain, anybody who runs a copy of their own copy of local trade list has access to that data.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's, I probably should have listed that, but I wanted to get some of those other features done. I really want to get the whole user interface pretty smooth in terms of creating a store and uploading the images, and then you're there and managing it and adding products. It's come a long way. And then I want to reach out to some of these existing maps, these existing Bitcoin Cash maps, and try and roll some of that data in, because the real test of this software is going to be the maintenance when merchants sort of go away. I've been thinking about this commenting system and the garbage and not these claims. This is where the sort of community moderation and maintenance is gonna come into play.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, a lot of it is, and I'm being in business for a long time, I keep telling that to people as well. Like, okay, building it's not the big deal. It's the maintenance of it, man. I mean, if you're not planning for what's going to happen after. So yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you're making it so that it works and it will continue to work. But there's also this idea of, well, as a community, we can help moderate. I also want to mention one other thing, and I want to shout out to Bitcoin Collab. I mean, of the list of people and how we're connected, I feel like Aaron at the Bitcoin Collab has just created some really amazing products. And we haven't talked a lot about it here, and there's a lot still under the covers that is coming. But I feel like Chris was even mentioning before this meeting how he's planning on using some of this. Again, I'm not gonna.
I'll talk about it. Yeah, let's talk.
Oh yeah, I would love to hear you.
So this is the packet. So this is that we showed this a couple meetings ago. This is a little hardware component that Aaron at Bitcoin Creations created, and you've got one, Aaron, and I've got one. These are early prototypes, and I make my own wine on the island, and so I've been thinking about how to use this, and so I'm going to get like a dispenser hooked up to this, so you'll have to pay Bitcoin Cash to have a machine pour you a bottle of wine or a glass of wine.
That's awesome. Then you can actually send me a QR code that says, "Hey, Aaron, you
buy me a drink.
Buy me a drink," and I'll send it, and you get paid a drink. I think that's awesome.
I'll have to stick a picture under it.
Yeah, quick, put something underneath there. An interesting one too that I want to bring up. Kalisti, who lives in the same town I am, big guy on a lot of the. He made a new wallet called Selene Wallet just for BCH, and it's really smooth, and it's for iOS and Android. So if you're interested in like getting out of Bitcoin.com wallet, which I like quite well, and I'm not against it, but it's certainly not focused toward BCH. The Selene wallet is focused toward BCH and very, very simple to use. So that's one that's out there and a new one to think about. I realize the PSF isn't focused on BCH entirely, but every time we do these discussions, we talk about how easy can it be to onboard somebody. And if you can find an easier wallet that is guaranteed to be non-custodial, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we want to make it easier to do. And I love it when people are focused on new products and build them. Damn it, they just get done with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I've sort of been paying attention to Kalisti and the Selene wallet, and it does look good. I think I played with it briefly. So yeah, it's always good to know when there's new wallet apps out there to try.
So what I want to mention too is I haven't seen any fireworks on any of our backgrounds. I'm looking for fireworks. I'm like, and the reality is, the reason I say that is Bitcoin Cash has been, and the price increase is mentioned one time in this meeting. And the reason I mentioned is that I feel like it's important to realize that we don't really care what the price necessarily is. It's about this decentralization. It's about this becoming money, not about, oh, hey, we made it increase, or somebody made it increase by 2x or 0.5 cents or, $2 or whatever. It's, all of us are really focused on making an ecosystem that works great, that is fully decentralized and not controlled by somebody. So, I mean, that's clearly what we're focused on, but it's not always said, and it's not always clear what our, at least our opinion is of that. And we think it's great, it's fine, but it doesn't change at all. And I mean, if let's just say this idea of, well, hey, if the price increased twice as much, twice as much, we would have twice as many meetings. The reality is we're actually decreasing the amount of meetings because right at this moment we got other things going on. So it's not based on that tech, not based on the cost. It's about what we need to do and what we're in the midst of for our own lives. So anyway, I just want to mention that, and that's why there's no fireworks, even though we're completely fine with the fact that the amount has increased in value.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what I think really differentiates the PSF from any other sort of group out there, is that we're focused on communication and entrepreneurs being able to do business and our privacy and these sort of eternal problems And crypto has some solutions there, and that's what we're focused on. So like the price is not a thing that we focus on here. And we focus on the tech and solving these sort of real world humanitarian problems that we all have, like very immediate hair on fire needs. And so that's why we focus on that. So yeah, I am glad that none of us seem to be too. I mean, it is worth celebrating that the price went up, but it'll probably go down too.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
we're all used to that. We're all used to the volatility.
That's true. I'll say that people, oh my gosh, it went up. I'm like, oh, don't worry, it's going to go down the same. Don't worry, it's going to go down again very quickly. So don't.
Yeah.
Chris, it will be interesting to add to the milestone. I'm not sure if it's interesting, but now Aaron mentioned about the searching this decentralized data, and we talked before about some limited indexers where you can index just one group. It can become like a searcher for this trade list.
Yeah. There's the stage is set for that type of a feature. I haven't worked on it, but so there's two sort of indexers going on behind the scenes with local trade lists. The first is a modified version of the PSF SLP indexer. So that's indexing all the tokens. It's also paying particular attention to the tokens that follow the simple store protocol. And so that's the first layer of where you can filter things or search things and add additional features. But then there's the SSP API, which is the backend for the local trade list, and that has its own Mongo database, and that's what is storing the data so it can rapidly be pulled up by the front end when you load the map. And so that's a second layer where you could add search capabilities or filtering capabilities. So there's a lot of options there for that.
It's good, but MongoDB is too centralized solution. Maybe something like this sub graph. I think these graph guys are doing. They're doing more decentralized indexing of blockchain data for their like graph stuff.
Yeah. I'm open to that. I'd like to know more about that. I mean, that's a pretty centralized service too, isn't it?
I don't know what exactly, but they have like two plans from what I know. The free one, it will be centralized, but you can pay a lot of money and have a decentralized like way to have this indexing data. And I don't know how they are doing this. It just sounds interesting, but it was pretty expensive to just try it.
Yeah. Well, I know from indexing is a really interesting sort of niche, because like I've interviewed with a couple companies that are indexing data on the Ethereum chain, and man, because for a lot of those companies running their own infrastructure, like their own Ethereum full node, is prohibitively expensive. They have to use a third party, and then even like every API call, every RPC API call, like it has a cost to it, like a significant cost. And so a lot of these indexing problems that real companies are dealing with right now is trying to minimize the number of API calls and like sort of ingesting content and keeping it in a low. It's just very, very different approach to say like Bitcoin Cash being able to run everything on a desktop, and like you have the entire blockchain and the indexer and every piece of data you could possibly want is on one machine, and it's not very expensive. It's such a change in mentality. And so I'm curious about the graph and like just all the infrastructure around the graph and what that looks like in terms of cost and scale. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's just that like this is part of my vision for local trade list is that like any person anywhere can run a Raspberry Pi and like have all of this stuff on a Raspberry Pi, and then it could serve like one Raspberry Pi could like serve the island nation of Nevis. and like there's just the scaling issues are non-existent with Bitcoin Cash. And this is part of why I want to know more about the graph, because a lot of devs really do like it. But I'm always unsatisfied with the surface level. I always want to like know what's going on under the hood and what kind of infrastructure is required. Oh, okay. So we're getting some good info from Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry's got a lot there. He said to unmute him because he brought up quite a few things in the chat just a minute ago about like Ethereum devs and people that are looking for like additional technology, different blockchains to use. And I'd love to see what he has to say on that. It sounds like,
yeah,
I mean,
Jerry, I don't have you muted. All I can do is ask you to unmute. I can't unmute you.
oh yeah, that's true. Well, he's made some excellent points. One of the, I'll just read off, even though he's not unmuted yet, is there are a lot of Ethereum devs who are interested in other tech like UTXO chains, which is, I mean, I think it's fantastic to think that there's people out there that are already experienced in blockchain that are looking for and probably haven't really explored BCH, any of this. So I'd love to hear if he's got more specific info on that, because
Yeah.
making this community more accepting to anyone like that as well would be great.
Yeah. Well, Jerry, I just made you the host, so maybe that'll give you some sort of power you didn't have before to unmute yourself. But he says, yeah, it could be useful for stamping data. Indexers should incentivize people to run their own full nodes. I agree with that. Yeah, then he's got a link to the graph and how to migrate Ethereum subgraph. Jerry, you might have to reboot your computer. Generally, these types of muting things and video things come from that.